Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It is Wednesday, August 16th. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, there is no doubt in my mind, and I mean no doubt in my mind, that Francis Ngannou has a huge punch. No question about it, right? And he's big. He's 6'4", right? If he lands that punch, wow, anything can happen. And of course, the fight is 10 rounds long. He's going to have a lot of time to land that punch, isn't he? But I'm a fan of boxing who firmly believes that boxing is a craft. That a lot of the guys who you look at, who look like they're having a tough time in the ring, are actually having that tough time because of the very high level of strategy, because of the very high level of competition. I know at first glance, boxing looks like a series of bar fights. In actuality, these guys are professionals. Understand, you have 12 starting members of an NBA basketball team, right? How many teams are there in the league? Something like 30 or so, right? So you have hundreds of players. You know, when we talk about being a ranked contender, let's say there are 10 ranked contenders. Let's say there's overlap between sanctioning bodies on many of the ranked contenders. Maybe one guy's ranked 6 here, he's ranked 3 here, he's ranked 2 over at this sanctioning body. But just understand the numbers. When we talk about a top 10 or a top 15 in, let's say, the heavyweight division, folks, that's all there is in terms of the top 10 to 15. There isn't a league. You're not talking about hundreds. You're talking about 10 to 15 guys. And when we talk about the heavyweight champion, and as I see it, and I know many of you disagree with me, because of a suspension years ago and issues, canceled fights, when we talk about the lineal, there's only one heavyweight. There's only one who's the champion. And he's been the champ for years. His name is Tyson Fury. Now look, I know I've been hard on Fury. I think he's ducking and dodging, doing whatever he can to avoid Alexander Usyk. Right? I don't buy the stories where one guy says, hey, I want 70%. The other guy says, okay, player, 70%, I'll fight you in your backyard. And then suddenly the fight falls apart. I'm just not buying it. I think these fighters know their weaknesses. I think the secret to Fury is that his weakness is in dealing with smaller, more coordinated athletes, right? I'll mention him till the cows come home. Steve Cunningham knocked him down, had him in trouble. That's not a flash knockdown. If you look at the film of that fight, Cunningham is loading up and throwing big right hands before the punch that knocks down Fury. I think one of Fury's toughest matches, and no one talks about it, is the Otto Wallin match. You saw Fury in the ring with a younger guy who seemed to be the better athlete. That younger guy then opens up a cut on Fury that the cut man doesn't come close to closing. Understand, if the referee was the referee from the Lennox Lewis, Vitaly Klitschko fight, and I mentioned that fight because those two are two of the best heavyweights of the last 25 years, in my opinion. with Tyson Fury, right? If we're talking about the best heavyweights of the last 25 years, I believe those three guys are on the list. Now, Vitaly Klitschko, who did have a deep gash, that was bleeding, lost his opportunity in a fight where he was holding his own against heavyweight champ Lennox Lewis to take the title because the referee called it on cuts. Clearly, the ref in the violent fight was somebody else, because there are times when Fury is bleeding more. Look at the footage. Then Vitaly Klitschko was bleeding. And what's interesting about that violent fight is Fury then stops being outside on violent, because violent from the outside was more agile than Tyson Fury. Fury actually had a hard time landing shots from the outside in that fight. Fury had to come inside. Fury has an inside game. And Fury had to start roughhousing. Now, I mentioned a violent fight. I could easily be mentioning the last fight against Deontay Wilder. Right there, Fury hits the canvas twice. Right, he's hurt when he gets off the canvas. Then, of course, he understood. This dude hits too hard. I can't be outside. I need to be up close. I need to smother him. That's the rest of the fight. So look, I'm not here saying that Tyson Fury is unbeatable. I'm not. But what I'm here to say is that Ngannou has a big punch. There's one question in this fight. And that question is, how's he going to land it? Let's roll the clock back a little bit more, because sometimes the past is prologue. You had not some dude who's in his first boxing match challenging the heavyweight champ. No, you actually had a dude who was the heavyweight champ, who had one of the biggest punches in the sport. A guy who was a closer. You could not sleep on his right hand. And he combined it with one of boxing's better jabs. You might recall, he was in his backyard because he was fighting out of Germany. He was the favorite in the fight against challenger Tyson Fury. I'm talking about Vladimir Klitschko. That fight wasn't 10 rounds. That fight was 12 rounds. 12. What I want viewers here to do is to look at the first 10 rounds of that Klitschko, because he was the champ entering the ring, Fury fight. We'll give the champ top billing. In the comment section of this YouTube video, please tell me the rounds in which you thought the then heavyweight champ, Vladimir Klitschko, landed flush right hands on Tyson Fury. Folks, if you revisit that fight, that's one of the masterpieces that boxing has given us. Fury is so in control. Fury is so certain that the heavyweight champ, a guy who knocked down Povetkin when Povetkin was unbeaten multiple times, right? A guy who stopped many people, Kubrat Pulev, faster than Anthony Joshua did. Right? Just understand, that version of Vladimir Klitschko, who was not out of the ring more than a year, like he was before fighting Vladimir Klitschko. That Vladimir Klitschko, the heavyweight champ, could not land a flush right hand on Tyson Fury over the first 10 rounds. Fury puts his hands at one point behind his back. Understand, Fury's legs are that good. He's dancing. He's feinting. Klitschko doesn't know when he's entering the pocket. Klitschko, quite frankly, is in an enclosed ring with Tyson Fury, and he doesn't know where Fury is. He can't find him. He doesn't know if he's coming or going. Fury's feints are that good. Right? Understand, too, Klitschko wasn't some guy from a different sport. When are we going to figure out that MMA is a different sport? That there's a reason why only one MMA guy, Anderson Silva, was able to beat an out-of-shape boxing guy, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Right? Understand, too, Silva's deceiving. If you go to boxrec.com, you're going to notice that Anderson Silva was a boxer way back in the day. He actually has a fight on record years before he fights Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Folks, that's the only fight I know of where an MMA guy beat a boxing guy. Right? I'm just telling you that Tyson Fury, unlike Chavez Jr., is an active champion. He is the reigning heavyweight champion. So Vladimir Klitschko, the then reigning, had a great jab, had a superb left hook, had a great straight right hand. In other words, he had boxing skills. I'm here focusing on his straight right because that's really what Ngannou has. Dominant hand, a straight big punch. I'm not expecting him to put punches together like a Vladimir Klitschko could. And you're telling me that Vladimir Klitschko did not come close to touching Tyson Fury before the 12th round, right? I don't know what's going on with Fury in 12th rounds. I'll agree. One of the things with this fight that's interesting is it's only a 10-rounder, right? Fury, of course, gets knocked down by Wilder in the 12th round of that fight, starts getting touched for some odd reason, doesn't look tired, but starts getting touched by Vladimir Klitschko in the 12th round, right? But outside of the 12th round, folks, it's very hard to find Tyson Fury unless you're a professional boxer who is more coordinated than him in boxing. That's why the Cunningham fight's a reference point. That's why the Wallin fight is a reference point. That's why there are many of us who are very disappointed he hasn't fought Usyk. So let's talk about power, because I do think this fight could well end by stoppage. Right? Because I need for folks to figure it out. While Fury has great legs, while Fury is ambidextrous, that's the other thing. Right? When a guy switches from righty to lefty, no boxers can get thrown off. How is a guy making his boxing debut going to deal with that? But I need for folks to think about the power. Okay, I'm tired of hearing about Ngannou's power over MMA guys. Let's talk about the power over professional boxers. Right? I'm not going to go back to Fury before he fights Klitschko. We're going to focus on some of Fury's recent fights, understanding that there aren't that many. But understand, Fury stops Wilder in the rematch. Fury stops Wilder in the third fight. Isn't this the same Wilder who's about to fight Anthony Joshua? Folks, Deontay Wilder, for those who don't know, has only lost to one man. And Wilder is a guy who's fought hardcore boxers who I think are championship level, like Luis Ortiz, who he fought twice. Right? You just saw Joshua take care of Robert Helenius after eating a few of Helenius' jabs. After having Helenius, right, linger a few rounds, right? That's a competitive fight. I know knockouts cause amnesia. I need for folks to think about before the knockout. Helenius is in that fight. Both fighters are winning rounds, right? The Deontay Wilder who Fury stops twice in 3 fights, twice, doesn't allow Helenius out of the first round, right? Wilder was still a force. That's Wilder's last fight, right? You're telling me that Ngannou somehow is so mystical, he's so magical, that I'm supposed to believe that he hits harder than Deontay Wilder? That somehow Tyson Fury, who's dealt with major power from a 5-year heavyweight champion, is somehow going to be in over his head against some guy making his boxing debut who has a big punch? Come on now. Let me say this too. You know, Dillian White, if he were a baseball player, he'd strike out, wouldn't he? Isn't it 3 times that this guy has had questionable urine tests? Well, let's just say he's still an elite fighter. He was, in fact, supposed to be Anthony Joshua's opponent, wasn't he? Folks, he fought Tyson Fury in one of Tyson Fury's recent fights. He ended up knocked out. The punch that did him in was an uppercut. Right? I need for people to realize Fury has a great left hook. Fury has a great straight right hand. But Fury can stop even world-class contenders, right? Long-time boxers, not dilettantes making boxing debuts with punches other than that left hook or that straight right hand. He hits Dillian White with an uppercut. Ball game. End of the fight. You saw the Joshua card. You notice how determined Derek Chisora was in a fight where he got hit. Let me just say this too, and I don't say it lightly. I understand fighting at home has its benefits. But what fight were those judges watching? I thought that Gerald Washington, Derek Chisora fight was competitive. I was surprised when David Diamante was reading the scores that he started reading multiple scores, and I thought, what? You mean not one judge here has the fight a draw or has Washington winning the fight? Right? Apparently Derek Chisora won that fight by a margin on at least 2 of the 3 judges' cards. Right? Let's just say that fight wasn't in LA or Vallejo. That fight was in the UK. That's the only way I can explain the scoring. In any event, you understood that Chisora, who had a bruised eye against Washington, right? He's bleeding. You understood that it takes a lot to stop Chisora. It takes a lot for Chisora to get so battered that the referee has to stop the fight. Because you always get the feeling that Chisora, who gave Alexander Usyk one of his better fights, right? Chisora, who famously knocked down Joseph Parker in the first round. Parker gets up, was able to go the distance. But understand, Chisora has given guys tough fights. That Chisora-Dillian White fight, hey, that fight's a jump ball until Chisora gets caught. In one of Tyson Fury's recent fights, he stopped that Derek Chisora. Right? Understand how bad the beating was. There are many in the boxing world who were watching that fight horrified, hoping that the ref would stop it sooner, because it was clear, well before the finish, that Chisora had no shot of winning the fight. So understand here, I know many MMA fans are expecting a stoppage, so am I. But I'm expecting Tyson Fury to get the stoppage. Right? I see Tyson Fury stopping hardcore lifetime boxers. Right? I see Tyson Fury dropping guys in fights where he's been hurt and dropped, like that third Deontay Wilder fight. Let's remember, too, how varied his attack is. Understand, in the second Deontay Wilder fight, there is a knockdown off of a Tyson Fury body shot. Folks, I think Ngannou's going to have a hard time finding Fury. I don't think Fury's going to have a hard time finding Ngannou. Now, the casino has figured this out. They're not going to make the mistake that they made in their ridiculous giveaway in the Floyd versus Conor McGregor fight. By the way, that remains one of the best opportunities to make money in the history of professional sports betting. Right? If professional fighters have a hard time landing on Mayweather, who was a defensive genius, how was Conor McGregor going to find Floyd Mayweather in the ring? Let me just say this too, and I don't say this lightly. I believe Mayweather carried that fight to the point where Mayweather's lingering around the pocket, allowing Conor McGregor to throw on him to make the fight interesting for the fans. Right? You know that from Mayweather's other fights, where a Logan Paul can barely find him. Right? I believe Mayweather tried to make that fight entertaining because he understood that if he fought the fight in accordance with his usual standards, it would have looked like his fight against Hall of Famer Arturo Gatti. Right? One of the most lopsided fights in recent history. Well, here, I just want to know how Ngannou is going to find Tyson Fury when Vladimir Klitschko couldn't. Right? I'll agree, the legs are the first to go. I'll agree, Tyson Fury is older. I'll agree, boxing has an expiration date. But if you believe Tyson Fury's washed up, how do you explain him beating Deontay Wilder the last two times they fought each other? Quite frankly, I thought he beat Deontay Wilder in the first fight, but I'll concede he was the guy hitting the canvas. Right? The second and third fight, folks, the second fight's a blowout. The third fight, he does hit the canvas multiple times again, right? But once his head clears, I would say from the sixth round on, that's domination. Right now, Ngannou, how's he going to deal with Tyson Fury if Fury decides to come inside? And Fury might not. Because how much was Derek Chisora in the last fight able to get inside on Tyson Fury? I would say the answer is not much. Right, so I'm expecting domination here. I'm expecting Fury to win the fight by stoppage, but, and it's a big but, I believe Fury is a showman like Mayweather. I believe Fury is going to carry Ngannou for a few rounds. Let me just say, I thought Fury, who respects Derek Chisora, that's obvious, right? He keeps fighting Chisora. How many fights have the two of them had? I think Fury reached a point where he carried Chisora a little bit. In other words, he had Chisora so messed up that he realized, well, Chisora's not knocking me out. He had to realize that the judges weren't going to rob him. He was too far ahead. And you got the feeling in that fight that Fury would land a few big shots, Chisora would be reeling around the ring, and then Fury would back away. In a way that Fury would not back away from, let's say, Dillian Whyte. Right, so there is the possibility that this fight lingers a bit. That Fury's dancing on the outside. Fury realizes this MMA guy can't find him. I believe Fury respects Ngannou. Right, this is the biggest payday of Ngannou's life. I believe Fury's someone who is into boxing to the point where he wants to showcase his skills. Right? He's not a guy who shows up and says, okay, this is going 3 rounds and then I'll be at the pub. No, this is the guy who, is going to let the fight last a little bit because he wants the rounds. Because he wants to show you the difference between a guy making his debut in boxing and a guy who's been the lineal champ for several years. Right? So this fight might linger. But I like Fury by stoppage. The hedge is going to be not Ngannou by stoppage. No, the hedge is going to be that the fight goes the distance. Just in case Fury lets the fight linger and then Ngannou turns out to be a Shannon Briggs. You might recall that fight against Vitaly Klitschko where Briggs gets hit with the kitchen sink and was just determined to go the distance. I'll say for many, being in the ring with the heavyweight champ is a huge honor. It's a huge life accomplishment. These fighters are very proud men. I could easily see a guy, no matter how much he shelled, say to himself, I'm going to go the distance with the heavyweight champ. Right? I don't expect Ngannou to be able to avoid the shots like Otto Wallen did. I'm expecting Ngannou to be in there, having to take shots and punishment from a guy who's a better puncher than we think. In any event, I'm expecting Tyson Fury to win the fight. I'm expecting him to do so dramatically. There are certain champions, there are certain fighters who you understand would be right in front of Ngannou, which could increase the odds of Ngannou getting a lucky punch. Right? Joe Frazier wasn't going to run from anybody. Right? Frazier didn't run from George Foreman, quite frankly. Foreman had to push him away to land shots. Joe Frazier would be right in front of Ngannou. Iron Mike Tyson would be right in front of Ngannou. Maybe guys like that could get caught with shots. Folks, this is a different level of heavyweight champion. Understand, he's 6'9", much bigger, by the way, than Ngannou. He's 6'9", and when he wants to be, he's hard to find in the ring. I think Ngannou is in way over his head. This isn't a tough man contest. This isn't a bar brawl. This is actually a game of craft where Ngannou is going to have to figure out a way with punches coming back at him. Right? That Fury jab that he's hitting Wilder with in the rematch was stiff. Wilder's going to be throwing stiff punches. His trainer, Sugar Hill, is a disciple of Emanuel Stewart. Understand, it's Stewart who, when he was the trainer of Vladimir Klitschko, was upset with Klitschko in a fight that Klitschko was dominating and started yelling to Klitschko that he had to end the show. Right? The Stewart mindset was, get the stoppage, even when you're dominating. Well, his disciple, Sugar Hill, is the trainer, at least for now. I understand there's a split in the Fury family over Sugar Hill, But at least for now, he is the trainer for Tyson Fury. Understand, if Fury is dominating the fight, there's going to be a moment where his corner is going to tell him, okay, now, close the show. Right? Put the exclamation point at the end of the sentence. I like Fury by stoppage, hedged with the fight going the distance, just in case there's a lot of heart that leads Ngannou to decide, look, whatever happens, no matter how beaten up I get, I'm going to end this fight on my feet. That's the fight I'm expecting. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. I expect Fury to win. I look forward to your comments. Thanks for stopping by.